So I'm going to stretch, and I'm just going to ask you 3 questions. What did you think of teaching class today?
I thought class was amazing. As usual, the ladies are better than the guys. Guys get in class and try to look cool. Ladies come to dance. So that's what happens. That's why you have more women in dance than men, because men are too macho.
Gotcha. If you had any advice to give to new dancers, what would you tell them?
Listen to as much music as possible. My advice is to open your mind to more than just hip hop or pop or rock or whatever. Look at the big picture. If you look at music as music, then you'll find that hip hop is composed of many different kinds of music. And so street dance is composed of many different kinds of dance. So the more music you listen to, the more dancing you should be able to do, which will, open your mind to new styles, new ways of moving, new thoughts. An open mind is always learning. A closed mind is shut.
So a lot of people refer to you as the quote-unquote first hip-hop choreographer.
Yes.
Who did choreography. What kind of advice would you give to dancers in the choreography scene?
Well, first let me clarify.
Yeah.
The first hip-hop choreographer means I started doing choreography. I got my first job as a choreographer in 1986. And I was hired to do a song called Joski Love the Pee Wee Dance. And I was also hired to choreograph for one of the most famous hip-hop clubs in New York, Union Square. So I started doing choreography then, and there was nobody doing hip-hop prior to that. There was locking, there was popping, there was b-boying, but there was no hip-hop. So that's just to clarify that. As to your question, as far as choreography, like I said, choreography is basically very simple. One person does a movement and everyone follows. And you remember that movement and you keep adding to it. But the best choreography comes from your dancing. You have to draw, your choreography has to come from something. It can't just be random movement. Otherwise, then what are you doing? Random movement. I mean, the more dance you know, the more styles you know, the more vocabulary you have. That's what makes hip-hop not stagnant like other dance styles, because there's always a fresh new way of moving. There's always a new dance coming out of the hood, out of the ghetto. There's always a new way of moving, a new kind of music to move to. So each style of music has its own way of moving. I mean, if you look at hip-hop as a whole, hip-hop started in New York. There was a whole New York sound. Then the West Coast took over. There was a gangster sound, the LA sound. Then you had the NorCal sound, the Northern Cali sound. Then you had the Midwest sound. Then you have the Dirty South sound. Then you have the Houston sound, the snap. Then there's trip hop, and there's all kinds of different music, styles of hip hop music. Each one of those styles has a different way of moving. So the more of the music that you know, the more styles of dance you know, the greater your vocabulary is. So you don't have to rely on the same movement constantly. You can always add new things. That's what makes hip hop grow. And it doesn't stagnate. It doesn't stagnate like, say, ballet or what they call jazz now. There are only so many movements, and after a while it's so codified that you get to a point where that's all you can do. That's why you have so many jazz dancers becoming hip hop dancers, because there's nothing else to do there, so they need a new way of thought, a new way of moving. So my advice is that open your mind. I'm old, I'm 41 and proud, but I'm constantly learning. What I showed you guys today is 2 years old. My daughter taught me that dance. So if I can still learn, anybody can still learn. But if your mind is shut, then you're stuck in that box. And everything that you want to do in life, not just in dance, is outside of the box. You don't want people to be able to box you in and say you're just this. I'm not a hip-hop choreographer. I'm not a pop or a locker. I'm a dancer that covers everything. Dance first, style second.
Would you say that, like, what's coming about on TV that they're calling hip hop dance? Would you call that hip hop dance? Would you like say
I would call it hip
something
hop
else?
dance. It's just my interpretation is this: there's studio-based hip hop and street-based hip hop. You know, what kids are learning today is in the studio, because what we did, our venue was the streets. We had block parties, we had clubs, you know, we had weddings, bar mitzvahs. Those are social gatherings where people got together and danced. Kids nowadays don't have those venues. They go to the studio. That's their venue. That's where they learn what's happening. You know, so what you have is what people refer to as commercial hip hop. When we were doing it, it was called commercial hip hop. We were doing music videos, we were doing TV shows. What's the difference? The difference is our dancing and our bass is the cipher. It's from the street. Most kids today, their bass is the studio. So, you know, it's a different time and a different feeling, but it's still hip hop. They're still dancing to hip hop. It's still based on the music. The difference is they don't really know the history of the dance. They don't know what their vocabulary is. They're just doing whatever their mind can come up with at the time. There's no real base to what they're doing. And that's what I try to teach people is, you know, if you look at it, there's a base to everything. There's a vocabulary. You can build off of everything, but it has to come from somewhere. If it's just random movement, then you might as well call it aerobics.
On that note, thank you, Stretch, for coming to teach the Funkbrella, and
And thank you for having me. In the yay!